So we have an amazing panel coming up. I think we might have enough chairs for everybody. So I now am going to do this without the aid of natural language processing. We have a brilliant moderator coming up. It's Arif Jan Mohammed, who is a partner with Lightspeed Ventures. And joining Arif, we will have Amir Kozashahi. We'll have Inhi Cho Shu, General Manager of Customer Engagement at IBM Watson. We will have Venki Viraragavan, Group Program Manager at Microsoft's Azure Cloud, and we're going to be joined by Ram Ramanathan, the Product Management Leader at Machine Learning at Facebook. And I'm so glad I got through all of those incredible names. Please welcome our Titans in AI panel to the stage. Give them a warm, warm round of applause. Thank you.
We ready to go? Oh, we are. We're completely mic'd up. Well, thank you, Stuart, for the wonderful introduction. My name is Arif Jan Mohammed. As Stuart mentioned, I'm a partner at Lightspeed Venture Partners. We're an early-stage venture capital firm based down in the Sand Hill Road ghetto, which is some of the most amazing concentration of capital, but you can't get a cell phone signal. We do a lot of work around enterprise IT and consumer IT, having backed companies like Nutanix and MuleSoft and AppDynamics from the earliest days. And we've been investing in this space, the AI space, before people even really talked about this as a buzzword or as a theme. So I'm delighted to be here. And I'm just humbled to be with the titans of AI, these luminaries from the industry. And so what I'll do really quickly before we get into some of the questions, and just as a note on the format, these questions are actually your questions. So these questions were curated by the audience, and they thought rather than have everybody line up and ask the questions, it would be better to actually have someone ask the questions. So these are your questions, not mine, and they're going to be answering them, and they've been briefed on some of the questions. But before we get started, why don't we go a little down the row? We'll start with you, Amir. A little bit about yourself, who you work for, and what you're doing in the world of AI.
So I'm also very delighted to be here, and the Titans term refers to our company's names, not to us individually. So we were discussing this. The Titan would be someone like John von Neumann or Alan Turing, and not Amir Khosrowshahi, just to clarify. So I work at Intel, and I'm the CTO of a somewhat new AI arm, AIPG, the AI Products Group. It's a business unit. It's a product unit. And as a CTO, I work on a full spectrum, the whole landscape of AI, starting from building silicon, new substrates for doing computation, building processors for doing machine learning, neural networks, as well as the full stack on top of it, all the way up to working with partners and customers on building AI systems. That's the crux of what I'm trying to address. How do you build an AI system that is able to perform well across a variety of stringent metrics?
Quick question, do you have any famous cousins?
I have my cousin, Dara, is the CEO of Uber.
Okay.
He was also my Uber driver when I was a kid, and he's a somewhat bad driver. I had two car accidents. One time we collided into a bus.
Wonderful.
Nice. Not relevant.
Not relevant.
And please a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I'm with IBM. I lead within IBM our Watson applications essentially around customer experience and customer engagement. So within IBM, we've got multiple areas of our business, everything from things that we're doing in the hardware in terms of chips to different aspects of the cloud and platform, all the way up to kind of the business applications. And the responsibility that I have is around business applications. So when you think about training in AI, my team and I focus on understanding the language of business through the lens of each role. So if you're a marketer, the word campaign means something very specific to you. If you're a salesperson, the word opportunity often equates to a CRM record with a stage in a sales cycle, right? If you're in the world of talent, and you are an HR professional and you're thinking about recruiting, that terminology has very specific intentions. So what we're doing is really training around AI for businesses and business professionals, and that's what my team and I focus on.
Excellent, thank you. And Venki, tell us a little bit about yourself, and thanks for flying down.
Oh, yes. I work for Microsoft. I just came in from Seattle this morning. I've been at Microsoft for, it's my 18th year. I think a lot of people raise eyebrows when they hear it. So I run the product management team for Azure, machine learning platform. And so I work basically on sort of supporting our first party, which is sort of our internal workloads for AI and sort of things like Bing and Office and Xbox, as well as building the products that customers will buy through Azure.
Fantastic. And show of hands, he's got an 8 o'clock flight. How many think he'll make it tonight? And Ram, a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm part of Facebook. I'm part of Facebook AI. So I lead product for a bunch of researchers and engineers who provide technologies that get surfaced in a broad set of products from, say, our newsfeed to Messenger to WhatsApp, and looking at all kinds of things from how do we reduce nudity on our platform, thinking about how do we increase ranking on a newsfeed side from an ads perspective.
And you're relatively new there. Where were you before?
I used to be in a small little search company in Mountain View.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. All right. Well, why don't we get into the audience's questions? I guess the first question that we'll ask is, this is kind of high level, but how do we articulate an ROI from an AI project to executives who might not actually see the long-term benefits? And I'll start at the end there with you, Ram, and we can work our way down.
Yeah, I think the ROI is less about technology investments, but really thinking about what's the business impact for what we're trying to do. For example, let's say the case within Facebook. So if we're looking to do something within, say, our newsfeed, the ROI is really around what's the top level business metric we're trying to improve on, whether it's lift from an ad spend perspective or thinking about engagement of users on our platform. And then the actual set of AI investments becomes a little bit more of an ancillary to the overall business statement we're trying to solve on.
Excellent. Venki, do you have anything to add there?
I think we've seen sort of very wide sort of ways description of what ROI looks like. The most sort of ML-driven business at Microsoft is the ads business, and there you're trying to uplift a cent per, or you're trying to drive RPM, and the numbers are really small. We make up in sort of large numbers. But at the same time, we also have customers who are trying to figure out how much to bid for a shale oil field, and they run the inference, sort of like the prediction about 3 times, 4 times a year when they're sort of bidding. But the ROI on those things is like hundreds of millions to $1 billion. So I think we've seen sort of a wide range, but the idea is to really be crisp on what your business metric is you're trying to move and how AI could sort of help there.
Fantastic. And Annie, you are the executive, so what do people need to justify to you?
First of all, many of our clients are seeing huge ROI, and ROI is sort of measured in a combination by their business impact, meaning revenue, return, or operational efficiency. So a few examples include, especially around understanding customer journey and customer analytics. So we have clients that have gotten an ROI within 4 months, i.e. the investments that they put into in terms of the technology spend and the labor spend, they've already recouped because they were able to increase engagement by cross-sell, upsell in terms of net new revenue generation. So that would be a very fast ROI, 4 months. In other scenarios, it's really about augmenting the individual professional in their productivity. So a quick example is, the average marketer probably spends about 2 to 3 days a week just understanding a campaign and campaign effectiveness and trying to understand and retrieve the data from multiple systems. Now imagine if you can compress all of that into an hour. So now that professional is all of a sudden spending a full day or 2 days actually analyzing it, not so much 2 to 3 days just trying to retrieve information and then putting that into context. And we're seeing that actually probably in some of the biggest areas is in call center and call center effectiveness, especially in real time as clients come in. So the ROIs are really dependent on the metrics, depending on the role and the enterprise and industry, but we're seeing it across the board.
Fantastic. And Amir, do you have anything to add?
So it's a really important question that I ask myself, and in many contexts, are our customers making money from AI? And sometimes it's very intangible, but I'll give you one example of Intel itself. It sells processors, makes lots of investment in processors in different ways, but also in the past few years, Intel has made a huge investment in evolving all of their hardware architectures in the AI space. So And Intel has really good relationships with its customers. You can just go and ask a customer, what percentage of your Xeon workloads are AI? You get back some numbers, you do some basic math, and it turns out that it's quite a lot. It's over $1 billion, and that informs future investment in AI at Intel.
Fantastic, thank you. So we'll go a little deeper now. So again, this is an audience question, but what are the right questions to ask to design a system for anticipation of long-term needs, as opposed to reaction to immediate requests and requirements? So I'll ask you, Amir, if you want to take a shot at that.
Okay, I think we'll have different perspectives. So again, at Intel, almost everything I do 2 or 3 years out, because we're building hardware, and it's very laborious, lots of engineering involved. So a lot of my time is spent on thinking about the current state of machine learning is X, and how is it going to evolve with time. And it's very dynamic and changing, and the industry and even the academics underestimate the rate of change. So how are the algorithms evolving? How are people making money again? What do the deployed solutions look like? And what kind of hardware substrates do we need to build today so 3 years from now they'll be ready for production?
Annie, what do you think?
Probably one guidance I give to clients is the business question that I set with them is, what's your overall data strategy and what's your policy around the data? Do you own it? What do you want to do with it over a long period of time? And then the actual platform itself, if it's a learning platform, truly AI, then you need to make sure you have the right governance. So the conversation I often have is about how do you develop really a thoughtful method and way to trust AI. So trust in AI is probably the key theme. And that includes not only the governance mechanism, but then also things like understanding value and explainability of your models, understanding rights around that data set, but also then operationally, how do you actually mitigate if there's biases in your algorithms that run in production live. And so this is one of the exciting areas. Actually, last week, we made a number of announcements around what we call AI OpenScale. And you can take any AI open source framework. So it's not just from IBM. So you can take Watson ML, but you could also take from Azure, you can take from AWS, TensorFlow from Google, and actually see how your models operate in live production, how your applications run, to see accuracy, fairness, what attributes you might have that are indicating you might have biases because you don't have a sufficient amount of data, historical data. And so these are things that I often think about long term, because these platforms are not just a static platform. They're truly dynamic and continuously learning. So having a thoughtful strategy around trust in AI, trust around your data set and governance is really core.
Venki, you're at the intersection as a platform vendor of both cloud and ML. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think sort of our perspective is maybe sort of even more pragmatic, I'd say, in the sense of like much scale. The thing we always talk about, and we've been burnt by both internally, is we sort of get very excited about ML when you sort of get a data scientist, they look at the data and they run a model and they're like, build charts and they're like, look, it's so great, we've like solved the problem and we've sort of made progress. But the sort of the long-term view, you need to think through how is this model going to show up in production? How is it going to be applied to the applications that you build in? What is the culture around sort of having this? It's not code anymore. It's probabilistic. It's not always right. So how do you sort of put that into your application? And then you also need a lot of telemetry back from the model, so how it's running, so you come all the way back and sort of learn from how it's doing in real life. And so I think so getting excited about the first PowerPoint or whatever else it is you show to say I have done ML, it's sort of just the beginning of a long journey, and it often takes a long time to get that right and make it actually valuable to get the ROI.
And to what extent do you work with customers on things like this?
We work very closely. So my background was actually I ran the AI platform for Bing and Ads and Office, and so we started in deep learning probably 3 years ago at scale, and we got all these great relevance models for Bing, and we were so excited about it, but then when we tried to put it in production, it was just terrible. And so we spent all of our research guys to sort of actually working with Intel, actually sort of doing assembly line level work to sort of make it production and run the model in 35 milliseconds. So it took us 6+ months to sort of get it go into production. So I mean, we've been burnt by it, and we sort of now take that lesson and try to sell it and help our customers from external customers work with that.
Yeah. Ram, you've likely lived this in
Sure.
both Google and Facebook.
I think the question you're asking needs to be relevant. Like, I think the thing is, if you ask the wrong question, you're going to optimize for short-term wins versus long-term wins. For example, let's say you want to redesign the camera for Facebook. The question, if you ask, what is a camera going to look like 5 years from now, is a different question than saying, okay, help me solve stabilization on my camera. If you ask, that's a short-term question. You're going to solve some short-term AI pain to make the camera a little bit more stable when you take photos. To saying, hey, how is the camera experience going to look different 5 years from now? Thinking everything from augmented reality to thinking how we can drive better computational photography, to how we think about sharing. So that's one thing I would guide is really sit back and think about what is the question you're trying to answer, and then whether AI can solve that or not is a execution problem. Really if you frame the question for the short term versus long term, what you're going to solve for is totally different.
And from a business perspective, how do you think about the trade-off between the two?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think from a business perspective, the longer term question, I think in some ways is the right question to ask, because thinking about how, for example, if we focus on just making a better camera that's a little bit more stable, means that we would have forgotten the whole wave of how Instagram is now becoming the leading platform for how you take imagery and what we can do with imagery and how we can think about transaction, etc. So really, I think from a business perspective, think about where your product is going to be, what's the business outcome you want to achieve, and then the short-term question of how you're going to get there is more of an execution question.
Excellent, thank you. So along the lines of a little bit more tactics, so if an AI project implementation actually needs domain knowledge experts who do not actually know or understand AI, how or when should a project include them to complete the project efficiently? You want to start? You might have lived this a couple of times.
Yeah, I think it's, I think domain knowledge can vary quite a bit, right? If you think about, for example, things that, let's say we're going to go build a product for a domain, say in, Brazil. How we think about Brazil and having folks who understand the sociology, psychology of how people interact with content on Brazil is very different from how you build a product for the US. Thinking about and it applies the same whether you build a consumer product or whether you build AI algorithms that drive the user experience for someone local in Brazil. So really thinking about having the level of knowledge embedded in the team. If you think about whether it's someone from a sociology background, whether it's someone from a psychology background, to kind of guide how we build both the algorithms, think about what features we include in as part of the algorithm building is very important. So it's not just, I think the way I think about it is when you build a product externally, you think about having both domain experts, computer hardware experts, software experts, and AI algorithm is no different than that. And it's really a reflection of having different people who understand a domain, technology experts to pair with them, so you build a product that's relevant for the right market fit.
Yeah, that's great. So, Venki, I'd love if you can talk a little bit about your experience with this domain versus non-domain inside Bing, and then now that you're actually surfacing the ML tool set outside.
Yeah, I think that's a great so what we found is, we've had great data scientists who sort of didn't understand the search, like when you bring them in, so they have to sort of get trained. So that's one. We also had the reverse, which is we've had people who really understand the data, but they don't have data science skills. And so this sort of, they've written the code, they understand the telemetry, they understand all of the data, but they don't have code. So what we've done is, for the most part, we've sort of paired them up very early. And sort of this flying in the expert one side or the other sort of turns out to be sort of more disruptive to the team because you have to relearn a bunch of stuff. So we normally do a lot of pairing to do that. But a company like Microsoft, we could afford that. In general, we sort of pull that together. I think what we found sort of with our customers is that this happens all the time. Our customers understand the data really quite well, but they really don't have the data science skill. And so a lot of the times we consult on how do you bring the right amount of data science, how do you bring them in and sort of train. That's one. I think that's sort of the near term. But there's a lot of ideas around how we can sort of split the training within things like automated machine learning, where if you're the data expert, you can actually have the machine sort of do some training for you and train the model, and you can just validate that the model works. And so the science is getting to the point where the model building can be made faster and sort of made with less skill. And so, but it doesn't reduce the need for understanding the data, because otherwise you don't know what the model's doing. So I think we've seen sort of the scaling out in the industry. You just can't sort of have millions of data scientists sort of applied like we have with developers.
There just aren't enough of them.
There's not enough of them, and so you have to sort of find other ways. And so I think like a lot of that is how do you get people who are adjacent to the space sort of start getting the thing, but nothing can get around knowing your data and your business.
You work
Yeah.
with the Global 2000, so we'd love to hear your perspectives on this.
I would say we always have domain experts on every project, and it's actually not about quantity of data scientists. You may only need a couple. What you really have to understand is like, what problem are you trying to solve? So if one of our global, actually industrial tech companies that we're working with them around an offering called Supply Chain Insights. And so it requires supply chain experts who understand things like inbound risk, anomaly detection, who are the alternate, suppliers of that, and then definitions, right? So one of the first examples is you ask a business person, well, what are your classifications? They'll say, what do you mean? So tell me, what does customer actually mean? Like, what systems does that pull from? What is a record? What stage does that matter in? We have the same scenario in this call center application that we had actually supported for a European, let's say, high-end fashion retailer. And what they wanted to understand was life cycle and lifetime value of a client, especially on optimizing orders and optimizing returns around that order and optimizing like the customer experience around all of that. And so providing kind of the education to create a virtual assistant requires that you have to understand the definitions, not only in the industry, but the definitions in that enterprise. And the only people that know that are the domain experts in the enterprise that know the business process, the language, the systems. And so it's a core part of every one of our training.
So curious, as you think about the time invested in building those applications or those solutions, maybe that's a better word, how much is spent on the domain side and how much is spent on the, call it more the technical AI side?
There's a bit of mix. So let's say the best recommendation is actually just define a single project that you want to get started on, which is a simple process, which means that here's a question or a set of questions you want to answer. So in this call center scenario, it was, hey, if a customer's returning a high-end good order, how do you understand like their full view of, is this a client that always returns orders? Is the client never return an order? How do we handle that? It may be a couple things in that scenario. It could be we've spent, let's say, no more than a few hundred hours training the model. So you're talking about a month. But it took probably a couple months to prepare the data for the algorithms to be trained. So there's all this preparation work that goes in hand, but for most clients, you can actually size out the work by saying, okay, what's the problem or the business process that you want to solve? How big is the data set that exists? How prepared is it? Meaning, is it in platforms where the data is easily extracted? Or is it in structures where the data and the platforms may be a little bit more closed? So you think about the integration layer, and then the algorithms and the testing of that. And that latter portion actually is fast. It's the data preparation piece that actually takes longer, and that requires the domain experts to help you.
Amir, do you have anything to add?
I guess so. I can give one interesting anecdote that how things have changed in the last few years. In 2014 or 2013, there were competitions. For example, there was a Chinese character recognition competition that was won by a Romanian using a deep learning algorithm, and the individual had no knowledge of the Chinese language. So there was this perception that you could use this really powerful new tool, neural networks, to solve any problem without any domain knowledge. And that has been, that was a really perhaps counterproductive misperception. And we've moved away from that to now realizing that a domain expert is absolutely critical to success, and that you can make some pretty significant errors by assuming that the algorithm will learn itself and do all sorts of wonderful things. So it's become a reality check in the past year where
Awesome.
we've gone back to the good old statistics.
Excellent. Well, we've got a couple of minutes left. I'm going to zoom back out to a bit of a more fun question. I actually wrote a blog post on this topic if you guys ever want to go on Medium and read about my point of view on the state of AI in the Valley and how every startup is basically calling themselves an AI startup. And so the specific question is, everyone is claiming to be an AI company. Everyone. So when is AI not AI? Not AI? And what can we do better, or what can I do better, which is the question that someone asked. What can I do better without AI than with AI? And I'll throw that out there. Throw your hand up if you want to answer the question. And if you're not going to throw your hand up, I'm going to pick on someone. Ram, you're smiling, so you go.
So the question is, when is AI not AI?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's throwing AI around the same way they did big data a few years ago
Yeah.
before that cloud. So it's become a buzzword. So when is AI not AI for
For my feeling is AI is way overloaded, and I do think that overall AI is just going to be is part of the computing programming, right? It's before you used to program with rules,
Yeah.
now you program with data, and it's just a programming way to drive. So every new software product you build is going to have AI in. So a concept of I'm an AI company or not, I think is quite frankly the wrong question to ask, because I think everything is going to have AI in it. It's just that that's the way you build products from now on. You used to write rules, and now you write with data.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's it's super well said. I think I think Google wrote a paper on this, which is like normally you start the ML projects with things that have complicated heuristics. You write these if-then statements, and you write more and more rules, and you're just like this thing doesn't scale, and you end up with sort of this more probabilistic technique. But in the end, like it's going to be everywhere. Like PowerPoint, we make a big deal about like intelligent formatting. That's going to be AI, but like it's just better for PowerPoint. Right? And so I think the techniques are just going to become widespread. It's like security or anything else. It's going to be a technique that people use. And so I think the .ai thing might have a shelf life too.
That's future state. In the current state, there's a ton of companies that are claiming to be AI.
That's true. And I think like it's fine. It's like they use the same technique that everyone else uses, and you get credit for the .ai, I guess.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in terms of spectrum of analytics, because you can use very simple like predictive models and forecasting models where you don't actually need like full-blown AI. So there's the spectrum of analytics. But when I think about AI in particular, I think about, hey, does the system actually understand the full context, meaning multiple data sets, not just one type, for multiple systems? Does it reason, meaning do you have a set of policy and or positions around how decisions are made in your organization or in your role that cause the system to understand the trade-off between one decision and another, especially when at the end of the day the value is relatively neutral, it's just a position relative to your company. Then is it learning over time? Meaning, a lot of systems also, even though you apply analytics, have memory problems because they can't remember fraud, as an example. But in AI-based fraud systems, you can actually remember those types of risk instances. And then most importantly, I think we're sort of venturing at the very early stages of a lot of interactions. So voice and text are probably the first pieces, but especially as we get into video and other forms, it becomes all the different permutations of interaction in AI will evolve too. So I think about that in that broader advanced state.
Wonderful. And Amir, you get the last word here.
Okay, so I guess I would say that the real story is not AI, but it's this broader narrative that's been going on for quite a while. And I'm quoting Professor Michael Jordan at Berkeley, that what we're doing is we're combining computational thinking, computer science, with inferential thinking, statistics. And that's what's happening now, and it's going to continue on for decades. That it's going to be like a field like civil engineering. That's what Michael Jordan says. And that AI is it's a term for today, but this is the larger narrative, and something that you should be mindful of. I'm always mindful that we are part of this story that started way before the last few years. Amazon was using recommendation engines long before.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you. We're out of time. Thank you to the titans and the luminaries of the industry.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. All right.